Relative pronouns in English are basically words like who, whom, whose, which, that, where, and when that come after a noun to make it clear which person or thing we are talking about. The part of the sentence that gives information about the person or thing is the defining relative clause, such as the man that lent me the book which I borrowed, the library where we met. For people, the relative pronouns who, that, whose, and whom are used. For instance, the man who lent me the book, the boy whose book I borrowed. However, the relative pronoun whom is only common in formal styles, like the man from whom I borrowed the book, which is very formal. This becomes less formal if the preposition is put at the end, such as the man whom I borrowed the book from. So, in modern and spoken English, it's best to use who instead and put the preposition at the end. For example, the man who I borrowed the book from. And this is considered informal and more natural. For objects, we use the relative pronouns which, that, and whose, like the book which I borrowed, the book that is entitled Peace, the book whose title is Peace. You can also say the book the title of which is Peace, or the book of which the title is Peace. In this case, the noun is always preceded by the definite article the. As for places, reasons, and time, we use the relative pronouns where, when, why, and that. In informal English, you can use these as relative pronouns, and in formal English, use which with a preposition, such as the library where we met, informal, the library at which we met, formal, the day when we met, informal, the day on which we met, formal, the reason that I was at the library, informal, the reason for which I was at the library, formal. In informal or spoken English, relative pronouns are often dropped altogether from the sentence. Who, whom, that, and which can be dropped if the information is related to the object of the sentence, but not when it's related to the subject. To illustrate, in the example, the man who gave us a ride, who can't be dropped because it carries information about the subject, which is a man, and in the example, the man who I borrowed the book from, we can drop who because here the information is related to the object, the book in this case, and the sentence becomes the man I borrowed the book from. When and why can be dropped exactly the same way. For instance, the day when I talked to him becomes the day I talked to him. The reason why they visited us becomes the reason they visited us. However, relative pronouns like whose, of which, and where can't be dropped, like the man whose book I borrowed, the book the title of which is Peace, the place where we met. Note that in formal English it's best not to drop relative pronouns, just keep them as they are. Now, what and how actually aren't relative pronouns. In fact, they replace nouns and relative pronouns. What basically means the thing which, such as what I read in the book surprised me, and how simply means the manner in which, for instance, I still remember how we lost that much. So far, we've been talking about the defining relative clause, which is a part of the sentence that comes after a relative pronoun to give information about a particular person or thing, and it's called defining, for without it, the sentence is incomplete. In contrast, a non-defining relative clause gives additional information about the person or thing. If we eliminate this information from the sentence, the reader or listener still knows who or what we are talking about. In written English, there is always a comma before a non-defining relative clause. Take a look at this example. The man who lent me the book was the author himself, who you may have heard of. The part you may have heard of is a non-defining relative clause, and if we drop it, the sentence still remains meaningful, which is, the man who lent me the book was the author himself. Note that you can't use that instead of who or which in non-defining relative clauses, like the book that I borrowed, which you may have read, is entitled Peace. Sometimes which gives additional information about the whole sentence instead of just the noun in the sentence, such as the man who lent me the book was the author himself, which was totally amazing.